methods for doing depreciation, right, guys? Okay, so you need to know various methods that people would be using in financial statements. That's all it is. Okay, so what we're trying to do is come up with what? Tell me what you do when you buy an asset. Debit, let's buy a piece of equipment. Let's buy a piece of equipment for $100,000. Could be building, could be equipment, right? Both of those are depreciated. Land is not, right? Land we wouldn't depreciate because it doesn't get used up. Is the idea. Okay, so let's say that we buy a piece of equipment for $100,000. Okay, it's a truck. Okay, $100,000, and we buy it with cash. What would you do? Debit what? Equipment, or if it's a truck, trucks if you want, delivery equipment, something, right? So we debit equipment. So let's do it. You guys already know this. 100,000. Credit what? Cash. What if I gave them 20% down and paid the rest with, and signed a note for the rest? Credit cash for 20 and credit notes payable or contracts payable, it might be, right? If you're making monthly payments on a contract. Okay, notes or contracts payable for 80. Everybody knows this. You've known it for a long time, huh? Use it, okay? So then after we buy this thing, what's going to happen? Well, if you had the note, you'd have interest, wouldn't you? In the next chapter, we'll mess with that again, okay? Short-term liabilities, and then we'll do long-term liabilities, okay, in the next 2 chapters after this. So we're just sort of going through the balance sheet, going down through the balance sheet, right? So here we are on fixed assets, property, plant, and equipment. Okay, property, plant being building and equipment, right? And then we're going to do intangible assets in this chapter a little bit, and other non-current assets. Then we're going to move into the liabilities. So we're just really kind of quickly going down through the balance sheet to even idea what it looks like. We already did cash, accounts receivable, and inventory, didn't we? Okay, so it sort of puts it together. All right, anyway, what do you want to do with this? If I had the debt, I'd have to have the interest on the debt, but we'll worry about that in the next chapter. What do I want to do because I have the equipment? Reflect the fact that I do what? What do I use the equipment for? If it's a delivery truck, it's for delivery, yeah, but I'm trying to do what? Generate revenues. And the cost of this equipment then should be what? Expense, as one of the costs of generating the revenue. That's it. Everything's always like that, isn't it? With the exception of land, we don't use it up, so it's expensive. Okay? So how do we reflect expensing this $100,000 of equipment? You got equipment with $100,000 in it? Okay. That's 100. All right. And we want to reflect that we're using it up. What account will we put the portion we've used up in? Which depreciation? That's the portion I used up when? It's an expense account. It's the portion I used up when? Oh, accumulated depreciation. Accumulated depreciation is the portion of the equipment that I have used up, right? That's that contra account that goes on the balance sheet. It's just like accounts receivable with less allowance for doubtful accounts to get net realizable accounts receivable. We just did that a couple of chapters ago. What's this going to be? It's going to be equipment less accumulated depreciation is what, guys? The portion of the equipment I have not used up. The portion I've used up will be accumulated depreciation, and we leave equipment at the original cost, don't we? Why don't we reduce equipment? It's not going away. I still have the truck. It's just getting older, right? I'm using up its utility value. Everybody got the idea of this? We did this before, didn't we? Okay? We're just getting it more solid here. All right. So accumulated depreciation is where we show what? The portion of the equipment we've used up. What was the other account she just said? What was that one? Depreciation expense. What's that? It's an expense account. So what happens to expense accounts every year at the end of the year before you start a new year? Close it and start over. So what's the balance in this account always going to be? It starts at 0 when you start a year. What's it always going to be? At the end of the year, it will reflect what, guys? The amount of the equipment I used up this year. The equipment's not really going away. Its utility value is, its usefulness to me is, right? By the way, I'm not trying to reflect market values here, right? A piece of equipment may be increasing in value, although unlikely that, but it might be decreasing in value much faster than I'm depreciating it, or slower than I'm depreciating it, right? What I do is I estimate how long I'm going to use it, how fast I'm going to use it up, and I'm going to depreciate it based on that, okay? And what I want to do, I'm using this piece of equipment to generate sales revenues, right, guys? Service revenue or sales revenues. And I want to match the cost of this piece of equipment to those revenues year by year by year. How do I do that? What's the journal entry going to be for that, you guys, at the end of the year? Or monthly, if you're doing monthly statements, or quarterly, if you're doing quarterly. What'll it be, everybody? Debit what? I'm using it up. Debit what? Depreciation expense. The question's too easy, isn't it? And credit what? Something just crossed my mind. Wait a minute. Funny brain works. On this quiz, some of you guys really screwed up allowance for doubtful accounts. We will fix it in the review session, and you will get it right on the test, okay? Come, do it. You guys are going to be the survivors, right? Every semester is like this. Usually we have a smaller room. If you have a room that only holds 30 people, and you start with 30, and then you have 15 or 20 left, it doesn't feel nearly as bad as this room that holds 75, and now we have 15 left behind. Right? Because it's ridiculous. Not really. That's just a nice, comfortable spot. Okay? But it's normal. It just happens. Why? Because it's a hard class. It just is. There's just way too much to learn in one semester. I have students tell me there should be 2 classes. Oh, that'd be great. Every hard class you have to tell them should be 2 classes. How long do you want to be here? Let's make it 8 years. I guess 6. Yeah, no, we don't really want to do that. But yeah, it's tough. I know it's tough. But you guys are getting there, right? You're really starting to show it, right? And we have lots of points left, don't we? I intentionally backload the points because I know this is a cumulative process. The first step is you have to decide you're going to work this hard, which is really painful. I have to do it over and over and over. You know, I can do this without working too hard, and I'll start doing stuff, and guess what happens? And I don't get it done. And then what do you have to do? Suck it up and get to work, right? Like Oregon football. No, there's no hope. On paper, they have a good defense. My gosh, what a joke. Okay, anyway, that was sad. That proves I'm a real fan, though, guys, right? Oregon umbrella and Oregon hat. There's no flag on my house anymore. No, Halloween flag's been up a while. So, yeah, I do have an Oregon flag. Very big, ugly green and yellow thing. Okay, anyway, so let's do this. No matter what, the amount that we used up, everybody listen to this. No matter what amount we use up this year, I am going to debit what and credit what for what I used up. Debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation. This is just like we did with inventory. This is just like we did with allowance for doubtful accounts, isn't it? Debit cost goods sold, credit inventory, just different amounts for different methods. Debit bad debt expense, credit allowance for doubtful accounts, just different amounts for different methods. Guess what we're going to do here? Debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation. That's what it is. I'm using it up, right? Just different amounts for different methods. Okay, so what are the methods? What's the one that you've used so far? Straight line. Okay, so let's say that the cost of the equipment is $100,000, which it is in the example I just gave you, right? That's the cost. Okay, very simple. You take away a salvage value or a residual value, which means what? That's what I think I'm going to sell it for at the end of its useful life for me, okay? So let's say I'm going to sell it for $20,000 at the end of its life. Everybody got it? What will its depreciable value be then? 80,000. That's it. Okay? We got 80 grand. So when I depreciate, how much do I want to depreciate if I'd like to have 20 left in its remaining book value at the end? Because what I'm going to have is equipment of 100 here. How much do I want to end up with an accumulated depreciation when I'm done depreciating it? 80. And I want to stop at 20. That makes sense, everybody? Very simple. Okay? So let's give this thing, I don't know, let's give it a 5-year life just to make life miserable. 5-year life. If I'm going to use straight line depreciation, that's one of the methods we could use, right? How about if I want to use straight line depreciation? What will I do? Okay, if I'm going to use, boy, that got small. if I am going to use, you're young with good eyes, can you see it actually still? I could already use the numbers. I should have started that way and it would have been big, huh? If I'm going to use straight line 5-year life, what will I do, guys? Straight line will be 80, which is the depreciable value. Don't take the 100 or you'll depreciate the 20 salvage value, right? Just take the 80 and divide it by what? 5 years. And each year I will have depreciation expense of how much? What's 80 divided by 5? 16,000. Okay? So year by year by year, what am I going to do here, you guys? Debit depreciation what? Expense. Yeah, excellent. For 16. Let me add, okay, and credit what? Accumulated depreciation. And we're just going to do this over and over and over every year for 5 years. You can't screw this up, can you? Okay? It's really simple. So as we depreciate it, we're reflecting the fact that it's being used up, huh? Okay? Now what's in equipment then? Well, we put the 100,000 in equipment, right, guys? What's in accumulated depreciation after the first year? What do we put in there? 16. Everybody agree? So what I would have on my balance sheet is equipment how much? 100,000, right? Not the 80 salvage value. Or I'm sorry, not the 80 depreciable value, right? We'd take out the salvage. On my balance sheet, I'd still have the 100, wouldn't I? I'd put 100 in, okay? And then I'd show the contra account right below it, less accumulated depreciation. Sound good? Works just like that allowance for doubtful accounts with receivables, huh? Contra account. How do you increase contra accounts, by the way? Credits, that's what we're doing here, right, guys? And what does that do to assets in total if you increase the contra asset? Decreases. Yeah, we're good, right? Let's all know this stuff. Okay, so this is now 16. So if I were to ask you for the book value or carrying value of this asset at the end of the first year, what would you tell me it was? 84,000. So when you look at the balance sheet, you can see how much they paid for the equipment, and you can see how much of it they've used up and how much they have left to use up. Got the idea? In terms of its usefulness. What if I show 100,000 equipment and 100,000 accumulated depreciation? 0 book value. What does that tell you? It's old. They've used it up, right? They have to replace it now, probably. Okay? What if you see this? 100,000 equipment and 16,000 accumulated depreciation. It's pretty new, right? And you can do that for any company. Always will work that way. So there's an advantage to having this accumulated depreciation, right? Okay, separate from the cost of the equipment. Okay, good. Then what's going to happen? I also have depreciation expense. I should have put that down here, I guess. I also have depreciation expense with how much in it? 16,000. But what do I do to depreciation expense? Where am I going to put that, by the way? Expense. Where am I going to put it? No, debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation. Right? Right, everybody? Okay, good. All right. What am I going to do with that depreciation expense? Which statement does it go on? Obviously, it's an expense. Income statement, right? I'm going to reduce my income by 16,000 because of that. I'm using up the asset. Just like you were using up prepaid insurance or something, okay? Just like you're using up inventory, it's becoming cost of goods sold. Sound good? Same idea. Okay. Then what do I do to depreciation expense before I start the next year? Close it. So part of my closing entry, aren't you glad you know about those, is to get rid of that and you start over with a new year, don't you? Okay. Let me ask you one other thing. What if I only had the asset for half a year the first year? What do you think you'd do? Maybe depreciate it for half a year, 8. Just put 8 in the first year. Debit depreciation expense 8, credit accumulated depreciation 8. And then what would you have to do in the 6th year? Do the other 8, right? 2 half years and then 4 years in between. 4 years plus 2 half years is 5. Got it, everybody? This is not hard, is it? Okay, so watch for that. If they buy it mid-year, okay, we'd only depreciate part of the year, wouldn't we? That'd be common sense, I think. Let this stuff be common sense. You guys are getting so you don't memorize this stuff, huh? Because you figured out you can't. It's way too much. But if you understand, you can do anything. It just starts falling in place for you. And you can do it pretty fast, too. You told me you couldn't do it that fast. Didn't you? When you told me? Didn't you? Okay. Yeah. Wow. Wouldn't it be cool if you go to work and you can do stuff really fast and right? Oh, man. Or whatever you're working on. That'd be really cool. Analytical thought just happens with you. Yeah. What I'm going to dispose of it for at the end. Right? That's it. It might be nothing, right? You might just throw it away. It could be zero. It could be just scrap value, or it could be a sales price that I estimate I'm going to sell it for at the end. When UPS buys a new airplane, they do not plan on using it for its entire lifetime. When they buy a new truck, they're not going to use it for the entire lifetime. They like to use it while it's new, and then they'll sell it to some other company, right? Or in the case of the airplanes, some other country maybe even, right? That makes sense, guys? Okay. We used to go to Nicaragua and we'd fly on old airplanes, right? Nika Airlines. My wife was the eBay director, and she found out what horrible shape they were in, and that's why their airfares were cheaper, partly. And so she decided we couldn't do that. I was really disappointed, though, because they served Nicaraguan food on the plane. It was a real meal instead of the lunchbox we get on our planes, U.S. planes. And they also would roll big cart, metal cart, big metal cart with bottles of rum and every other kind of alcohol you can imagine all stacked up on the cart, and you could have as much as you wanted to drink. Who cares if you crash, right? Yeah. Anyway, they were kind of dangerous. It was fun. So, Nika Airlines, when it started, the whole country was dangerous at the time. Kind of, probably still is a little bit. Okay, anyway. So, what happens the next year here, you guys? You do it again. So I'm going to debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, huh? How much will I have in accumulated depreciation now? 32,000, everybody agree? What will I have in depreciation expense? Be careful. Just 16. Every year is going to be 16 on the income statement, right? That's the portion you used up that year. That's it. So now what will I have in accumulated depreciation? What do you think? 32, it's a miracle, right? And what will my remaining book value be? 68,000. Here we go. Then what will I do? I'll close depreciation expense, won't I? Then what happens? The next year I do the same thing. Third year I do the same. That was third. Fourth year I do the same thing, right? Fifth year I do the same thing. What will be the balance in accumulated depreciation after I do this 5 times? 80,000. 5 times 16, right? 80,000. How much will I have reduced my income by over the 5 years? 80,000. How much will I have reduced retained earnings, which is an equity account, by when I close all those depreciation expenses to retained earnings? 80,000. So I reduced my assets by 80 because I'm using up the assets, right? And I reduced my equity by 80. Everybody agree? Okay, good deal. All right. So then where would I be? I'd have a $100,000 asset, and what would be my accumulated depreciation? 80,000. And what would be my remaining book value? 20,000. And if I guessed right on how much I'm going to sell it for, I'd have no gain or no loss on selling it. That's it. No kidding. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Why not? Okay? What would it look like when I sell that? Okay? What would happen when I sell that? Okay, let's say I sell it for exactly 20. Okay? I sell it for 20. This is at the end of its life. Everybody agree with that? Okay? Debit cash. 20,000. What do I get rid of? What don't I have anymore? Equipment. I gave the equipment to whoever bought it from me. What do you want to credit equipment for? Be careful. How much is in the equipment account, guys? 100. You never changed it. So if you get rid of it, what do? Credit it for how much? 100. Now, that won't just be an account with 100. It'll have 10 million in it, right? So you take out the one asset, right? All the assets are in there, all the equipment's in there, right? So you just take out that one piece of equipment when you sell. Does that make sense? So 100,000 comes out. Fantastic. I need 80. What is it? You better get rid of the accumulated depreciation, because now what we've got in accumulated depreciation is at 80, right? So I want to get rid of the equipment for 100, and I want to get rid of the 80, otherwise you have a negative asset, right? You'd have zero for equipment, negative 80 for accumulated depreciation, right? Credit. You'd have negative asset and no such thing. So you got to get rid of the 80,000 accumulated depreciation. Okay? So that was a great question. We wanted to get this done today anyway, right? So, will you necessarily sell it for 20? I mean, you're guessing 5 years in advance what you're going to sell it for. You're also guessing it's going to last for 5 years, right? These are guesses. They're estimates. Financial statements are estimates of what's happening, right? Okay. What if you sold it for more than 20? Let's sell it for 30. Let's record that. What would that one look like? So here's a 20 sales price, right? Let's do a 30 sales price. Somebody want to tell me what to debit? Cash for 30. This is too hard to believe. Okay? Really simple. I'm going to give you points for this too. Debit what? Or credit what? I don't care. What'd you get rid of? You don't have the equipment anymore. I want to be exactly the same thing as we just did? Of course it would. How much? 100, of course, because that's what it's on the books at. And debit what? Accumulated depreciation. How much? Not 70. It's on the books at 80, guys. What do you want to do? You want to get rid of it. What do you have to do? Debit it for 80. Oh, no. I need another credit for 10. Will you tell me what happened if you have a 20,000 book value asset and you sold it for 30? What happened to you? Well, it's not going to be sales revenue, though, because this is not product I'm selling my customers. This is out of the ordinary business, right? This isn't the ordinary course of business, buying inventory and selling to somebody else or selling services to somebody. What's this? This is peripheral. Remember that? You read about it real briefly, right? It's peripheral. What do we call those things? Would you say? Gains and losses. This is going to be gains and losses. This is where we get gains and losses. Gains are kind of like our revenue, only there's no cost associated with it. Does that make sense? Okay? There's no cost of goods sold, no operating expenses, right? Okay, so, but it does, gains do increase what? Your net income, and therefore your equity. Make sense? Just like revenues do. Okay? So here we go. We've got another credit we need. What do you think it'll be? It increases my income by 10 if I sell something that's on my books at 20 for 30. Everybody agree? I got a $30,000 asset for a $20,000 asset is what really happened here, huh? What do we call that? Gain on sale. And we put it in our income statement down towards the bottom of the statement. Okay? Got it? In the non-operating section. Okay? That's what this is, guys. Okay, let's do one more. What happens if I sold it for $15,000? Let's do that one. What do I get? Sure, debit cash. Remember when you didn't know to debit cash when you get cash? Yeah, okay, just to remind you, you did learn a few things here. Okay, that seems like forever ago, huh? Okay, credit what? Don't have the equipment anymore, do I? So not much is changing here, but a whole lot is changing in what happens to the income statement, huh? And I guess the balance sheet too, the cash is different. 20, then 30, then 15. What else do we want to get rid of since we don't have the asset anymore? Accumulated depreciation, otherwise you have a negative asset. Okay, 80,000. And what else, you guys? Yeah, loss on sale. How much? It was a $20,000 asset, you sold for 15. How much you lose? 5. Does that make the journal entry balance? Yes. Lovely, huh? Yeah, that's really cool. There's a much smaller group, but now everybody's paying attention. Everybody's trying to get it. Everybody's scrambling. I don't mean everybody read the chapter. I know you did not get to it. Get to it, though, right? Okay. If you did, that's better because you understand more what I'm talking about, huh? The whole feeling changes. I wish I could just start with you guys every semester. The problem is I don't know who you are until you do it. It's kind of cool. Okay? That's what happens when you go to work, too. You don't know who's going to really deliver and who's not. Who's going to really perform well, who's going to make it really good for the company, you know, and not. It's awful, isn't it? kind of the way it is in most human endeavors, I'm afraid. So anyway, it feels real good though, doesn't it? It feels good to have a little success. And it feels good for me for you to have a little success. I like it a lot. I could have had you have success the first day though in every quiz, since all I had to do is ask you what I know you know, and then you could write it down and I could give you your A and you could feel good about yourself right from the beginning until you graduate and don't know how to do anything. And then you hate me. I'd rather be hated now and forgotten about later. That'd be good. That's what I really like for students. I want you to think you always knew anything I ever helped you learn. Okay? Did it on your own. Well, you are doing it on your own. Okay, anyway. So should we do another depreciation? By the way, can you now do it for any sales price? Yeah. What if I just abandon it? I have to just throw it away. What's my loss? 20,000. Okay, good. Excellent, guys. Let's do another depreciation method then, huh? All right. What's another one we got? Declining balance? Okay, now this one's kind of tough. Let's see. I don't want to do it that way. Let's put... There we go. Okay. Let's do declining balance. And we'll use this same example, right? Okay. So same one we've got here. There, by the way, there's 200% declining balance called double declining balance. Listen to this one carefully. It's double the percentage that straight line is, okay? It's not double straight line. It's double the percentage straight line is, because we don't deduct the salvage value. So it's going to, so don't just double what straight line would have been and call it good, okay? So in our example here, straight line was 16,000, right? So anyway, there's double declining balance, there's 150% declining balance. Guess what that is? Instead of being 200 times 200% of straight line percentage, what would it be? 150% declining balance. 1.5 times the percentage straight line would be. There's 125% declining balance. There's 175%. Got the idea? So if they gave you something other than 200, who cares, right? That's all that means. Okay, it's good to know what that means. But let's do double. So double or 200% declining balance. Okay, let's use exactly the same asset. Now this is the only one where you are going to calculate your depreciation based on the cost. We're going to use the 100,000 cost to determine my depreciation. Okay? And then I'm going to stop depreciating when I get down to the 20,000. Everybody got it? Okay, really critical. This is the only one. The other methods, you always use the depreciable value, in this case 80,000. Okay? This is the only one that's like this, and you'll see why in a second. Because we're always taking a percent of what's left. Declining balance, I'm always taking a percent of what's left. Okay, so how would we do this? We still debited equipment and we credited cash, say, right? I got a $100,000 asset, okay? So equipment is 100,000. It's still 100. Guess I should have put the zeros because we're going to have all kinds of strange numbers now. What's going to be an accumulated depreciation? Okay, here we go. What would straight line be? It's a 5-year life, right? What percent is a 5-year life? What percent per year? 1/5 or what? 20%. Just double it. Times 2, huh? 200% of it times 2 is how much every year? 40%, and it's 40% of the remaining book value. Got it? Okay, that's all we do. All right, so I've got a $100,000 asset sitting here. I want to depreciate it for the first year. How much? How much is that? 40% of 100,000, 40,000, that's it. Don't use the 80, right? Depreciable value. We're going to stop when we get to 80 accumulated depreciation. So we'll still have that salvage value. Got the idea? Or with this method, you don't have to set a salvage value at all. You could just depreciate it for the 5 years, and whatever's left is the salvage value. Okay? That would work too. Okay, so here we go. I am going to take my $100,000, and I'm going to take it times 40%, and I'm going to say, okay, $40,000 is my what? What did I just calculate? What are we doing here? Yeah, that's the Debit to depreciation expense for the current year and credit to accumulated depreciation. Sure, well, that's what we're doing. It's the same entry, guys. Debit depreciation expense, right? Here we go. Debit depreciation expense, 40,000, and credit what? Accumulated depreciation. You guys got it, okay? We're there, aren't we? What's the remaining book value, everybody? 60,000. Everybody see it? 100 less 40? This is going fast, isn't it? Is 40 more than double the 16 straight line was? Is 40 more than double 16? Well, yeah, right? So don't just double the 16 and take 32. You guys with me? That's because we didn't take the salvage value off. Okay, so here we go. Let's do the second. Oh, by the way, what would you do with the depreciation expense at the end of the year? Close it to retained earnings, right? You go on. Always be doing that. Okay, so let's do year 2. That's year 1. Let's do year 2. What do you want to do? Debit depreciation expense, right, guys? Credit accumulated depreciation. How much? Okay, what's the remaining book value? 60. 100 less 40, right? Everybody good? So we got 60,000 times what? 40%. Getting the idea? And how much is it? 6 times 4, you guys. 24,000. All right. Our new high-tech age, we can't do anything ourselves. That's sad. Okay. All right, 24,000. I was with Richard Schrader yesterday, and we're working on a presentation we're going to do. I looked up something on WikiLeaks, and he says, "You're kidding me, really?" And I says, "Was it fast?" "Yeah." "Is it right?" "Yeah." I says, "Well, why would you look all over the place to find something?" Right? What did I say? WikiLeaks? Yeah. No, not WikiLeaks. I didn't look there. They're right too. Wikipedia, thank you. Yeah, Wikipedia. Yeah, WikiLeaks. Wikipedia. Okay. Unfortunately, they were right too. Okay. They said that they told the truth at least, even if it was kind of illegal, probably. Okay, debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, right? So now what do we have in accumulated depreciation? Yeah, we got $64,000 in there. What's the remaining book value for the third year? 36,000. Now be careful, we want to stop when we get down to what? 20, yeah. So how much more could we depreciate? 16. So we got to be careful not to go over that. Okay, so how much would we take for the third year? We're doing year 3 now. How much do you want, guys? 36,000 times what? 40%. Yeah, somebody be nice and do it on their calculator for us. We can't do that anymore. We had trouble with the last one. Okay, what's 36,000 times 0.4? By the way, I got how much? Is that what it is? You believe it? Double and double. Yeah, that doesn't sound right. 72 doubles. What is it? Yeah, 14.4. Your shortcut didn't work. I have advice for you. When we do this stuff from now on, because you guys really are working your asses off now, really are, have your calculator or your phone out and do every single one of the calculations I do. You'll more have to remember how to do them and be able to think about how to do them. Bring your calculator with you and just do them, okay? Get yourself in a habit of doing that. So you won't be so passive about stuff, okay? Active learning, right? Okay? I really recommend that, unless it drives you crazy to do that, and then don't. I don't care if you're getting it, right? But if things are fuzzy for you at all, always calculate, okay? Always do it. Okay, so here we go. For year 3, 14.4. Now, how much is that going to make accumulated depreciation after we put it in there? Well, it's 64 already. It's going to be 78.4. We won't be quite to 80, so we're okay, right? We'll have some left for year 4. Okay, so in year 3, we're going to debit depreciation expense for the 14,400. Everybody staying with me? Credit accumulated depreciation for 14,400. Everybody good? All right, so now let's do year 4. And we close depreciation expense every single one of the years, of course. Year 4, what do we want? What's the remaining book value? Well, let's see. I just put in another 14,400 here in accumulated depreciation, and we just said we've got 78,400. Is that right now? What's the remaining book value, everybody? 21.6. If you take 100 less 78.4, it's 21.6. What's 40% of that? It's too much, isn't it? So we're not going to do 40% of it. 40% would be about 8,000, wouldn't it? Way too much. What's the max we can do to bring my accumulated depreciation up to 80? 1,600. That's it, right? That's all I got left. So guess how much you're going to do in year 4? 1,600. My example's not very good, right? Obviously, it wasn't a 5-year life then, was it? Okay. Debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation. Everybody got it? And we'd stop at that point. We'd have nothing for year 5. Okay? Now, the alternative is you could just use no salvage value. What would I have done if I used no salvage value? Let's assume no salvage now, okay? No salvage value or no residual value. Let's redo years 4 and 5 and look at what the salvage value would be if we just decided to have none, which a lot of people do, right? It's just simple. How much would my depreciation be in year 4, gang? 21.6 times what? 40%. 8,640. Thank you. Okay? Debit depreciation expense, 8,640, huh? Credit accumulated depreciation, 8,640. Okay? Now I add another 8,640 in here, and what do I have in accumulated depreciation at that point? 77? 87. 87,040. All right, guys. 87,040. Okay? And what are we going to do then on the next one? What's the remaining book value? It's 100,000 less 87,040. Does everybody agree with that? How much is that? 12,960. 100,000 less 87,040. 960. You got to have 900. Yeah. Don't do it in your head. 12,960, right? Okay, right? Times what? 40%. So we're doing year 5 here, right, guys? How much are we going to depreciate in year 5? 12,960 times 40%. How much is that? $5,184. What's the journal entry? Debit depreciation expense. Is this a little redundant in what the journal entry is? Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? That's what it is, to record depreciation. Okay? 5,184. Ah. So, what if I were to ask you, what's the remaining book value at the end of year 5? Can you tell me? I'll get this out of the way. What do we now have, gang, in accumulated depreciation at the end of year 5? You just added how much more to it? 5,184. So what's 5,184 added to 87,040? What do you get? 92,224. What's the book value at the end? What would we say? The equipment of 100,000, right? Less what? Accumulated depreciation of how much? 92,224, is that what it was? So now we would have a remaining book value, which I guess is the salvage value if you stop after 5 years. Got the idea? You just stop then. How much is that? Ta-da. Okay? Everybody good? It's easy, isn't it? Okay, let's do another method.
Which method was this called?
This one was double declining balance, right? Straight line would have been 20% per year, 1/5, and I doubled it. By the way, what if it's 150% declining balance? What was your percentage of income? 30.
35.
No, 30. Okay? Everybody good? All right. Let's real quickly talk about units of production. Okay? how would units of production work? Units of production. What you do is you decide, oh, by one other thing. How would you decide between using straight line and double declining balance, or these are accelerated matters, or the units of production? How do you decide on these? How do you think the asset gets used up? What do you think if you bought a building? What would probably make sense? Maybe straight line? I don't know. Usually we do. How about if you buy an automobile? Do you use up more of the automobile in the earlier years and then in the later years? Anybody have a real old car in here? Students typically do. Anybody have a newer one? Pretty new one? Yeah, students shouldn't, but I hope you didn't buy it. Okay, anyway. What's the deal with a real old car versus a new one? The old one you got real cheap, but what do you have to do? Constantly put money into keeping it running, right? Okay? What do you do on the new one? You pay a fortune for it, right? Big payments and all that, but then what? It's almost no maintenance, huh? Okay, so think about companies. When you have a brand new truck, what happens? You're using up a lot of it, right? Its utility value is getting used up, right, early on, but you don't have all those repair and maintenance costs. And in the later years, you have a lot of repair and maintenance, and so you have less utility value being used up, perhaps. So you can sort of even it out. So maybe declining balance would make more sense for a truck. Does that make sense? What if it's a machine that you use to make your product, your widgets, whatever you sell, Barbie dolls or something, right? What if it's a machine that does that, and the machine will make so many Barbie dolls? What would be a really good idea? Units of production. If they make 1,000 Barbie dolls, they use up so much of the piece of equipment. Does that make sense, guys? Okay? So what we do is we would estimate how much we're going to use. Okay? So let's say that we have this $100,000 piece of equipment. Let's have it not be a truck now, maybe, okay? So it's a $100,000 piece of equipment, and we are going to make, I don't know, 2,000 units of product over the 5 years, right? These are real expensive pieces of inventory, I guess. So I've got a $100,000 cost, and I said 2,000 units. All I do is divide the units in, and then this is just like straight line after that. How much is it per unit? 2,000 units on $100,000, guys. How much am I going to depreciate per unit? $50 per unit, right? Okay? So then what I do is I keep track of how many units I actually use. This is my estimate, okay? I keep track for each of the years how much I actually used. So for year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe I use 15,000 units, produce 15,000 units, 12,000 units, 11,000 units, 10,000 units, and 9,000 units. Okay. Did I produce more than 2,000 units? Whoops. I put the decimal in the wrong place. I'm sorry. Yes, I produced more than 2,000 units. Come on, Keith. Way more. Okay. So let's say I produced 5 years. 500, 450, 400, 460, and 410. Did I produce more than 10,000? Or more than 2,000? I'll get it right yet. Did I produce more than 2,000? Yeah. What am I going to do as soon as I hit the 2,000? My life is 2,000 units now, you guys. What do? Stop depreciating when you get to the life, right? The end of the life. So what am I going to use? I'm going to use the 80,000 depreciable value or the 100,000 cost to determine my depreciation. So what do you think about depreciating 50 each time? Better not. What did I better do? Just use the 80,000, divide it in, right? And what do I get per unit? $40. If I depreciate over the 2,000 units, $40 every time I produce a unit, I will have how much accumulated depreciation? after I do that? 80,000. And what'll be my remaining book value? My salvage or 20,000. Everybody got it? So be sure and use the 80, not the 100. Everybody get the picture? It's just like straight line, only I'm doing it over the number of units. So you give me the depreciation expense each year. We're going to debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation. I'll let you guys out of here. It's always debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation. Then I have one more method to give you. Not today, though. How much is it the first year? 500 times what? 40 bucks per unit. How much is that? $20,000? As soon as we hit 80,000, we're stopping. 450 times what? $40. How much is that? 18? Is that what that is? What's 400? Is that what it was? What's 400 times $40? 16,000. We're nowhere near the 80,000 yet, right? It's debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation on each of these. What's 460 times $40? 18,400. Are we there yet? Not quite, huh? What do we have left to go? What do those add up to? 20 plus 18 plus 16 plus 18,400. 72,400. So how much do I have left to get to 80, gang? 7,600. So that's not going to work, right? It's going to be what's left, 7,600. Debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, and how much do we now have? 80,000 in accumulated depreciation, and I stop. It's just like straight on. Okay? See you guys. Thanks for coming on a Friday.
So what happens?
I know it's what you want to do with your time. Yeah.
So what happens to the remaining
They're free. They're free. Same with time. If you keep it longer, I can use it for 10 years, even though I depreciate it for 5, right? They're free. What I did is I screwed up my estimate, right? And what we do with estimates, if I find out my estimate was, with hindsight, not very good, I handle it in the current year and prospectively in the future, and we'll mess with that stuff, okay? If you change your estimate, what do you do? Good question. Okay.